I'm Travis Payne.
And I'm Stacy Walker.
Welcome to Full Out with the real Travis and Stacy on YouTube.
Grace Gaustad is a Los Angeles-based singer and songwriter. Gaustad rose to prominence in 2016 when they launched a YouTube channel with their performance of Hosier's Take Me to Church, which received more than 25 million views and counting. Gaustad released the debut album Black Box, What Are You Hiding? In August 2021. The album features connections with Gaustad's charity, the Black Box Project, and addresses Grace's experiences with bullying and growing up as part of the LGBTQ plus community. Gaustad's 2022 song Hero was included in Netflix's Rescued by Rudy. In June 2022, Gaustad began releasing songs off their second album, Pillbox, What's Your Fantasy? The November 2022 single Like a Person, released early following the Colorado Springs nightclub shooting, is about Gaustad's experience as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. The music video features trans activist and influencer Dylan Mulvaney. I was so honored and pleased to be able to choreograph with Grace on the Pillbox project. So without further ado, everybody, this is Grace Gaustad.
Hi, Grace.
Hello.
I'm so happy to meet you because all I've been hearing is Grace.
Yeah. Every time there's a release, we've been saying, like, because we start this, our episodes by saying, what have you been doing this week? I'm like, oh, Grace had another release. We just had Manga come out. Like a Person just came out. And now we're here and we're at The Cloud, which is your latest release, which is one of my true favorites.
Yes, that was a very fun day on set that you just had. First of all, Stacey, I know you already know this and everybody listening knows this, but Travis is like the best ever.
Yes.
Just in general, just like so good. But yeah, The Cloud was such a fun day. We had all these dancers just in these like incredible outfits playing with lights and shapes. And it was just, it was really magical. It was a fun day.
Directed by Grace's creative partner, Van Alpert. And I had Darrell Bullock assisting with me on that. And we had some great dancers. It was great fashion. It was great imagery. It was, well, first of all, let me just talk about, Pillbox Project for a moment. We met, I would say serendipitously, and we had a lovely conversation. And I didn't realize that, I was actually being interviewed. And so when we finished the conversation, Grace was like, well, yeah, let's get started. I already told my mom I want to work with you. And I was like, oh, great. Okay. So we got into this flow. And what I found was that for the past year or two, Grace had been working on music and working on story and, collaborating with Van to write this sort of epic piece that had all of these different chapters. And it'd been the first time since working with Michael that I got to really create at such a high level and create a visual for every song with them. Mm-hmm. And so that was just, first of all, right out of pandemic, such a blessing, but they've continued to be released every few weeks. And so it's been like so interesting and so wonderful seeing everybody's response to something we did last year.
But I wanted to ask you, Grace, how did you come up with that way of doing a project? Just to fill the audience in, most people have a song, they shoot a video, the end. And then they have a song, they shoot a video. Okay. But you saw this whole thing through from beginning to end and did it all at once. So how many music videos did you shoot?
Well, for Pillbox, I think we shot 12 and I guess 13 if you include sort of the title track and trailer. Mm-hmm. And same thing for Black Box. I think it was 12 music videos. So yeah, these are big projects with big sort of storylines and arcs. And I started writing that way because I think at my truest core, I'm actually a storyteller who just, was able to play the piano and sing, but storytelling is really what I love. Mm-hmm. So, I like the project sort of to take the listener or the viewer on a journey from start to finish. And hopefully they can see, their own experiences within the project and their own storylines and things like that. So it's a ton of fun to create that way. I think it leaves you with so many more possibilities than you would usually have.
I love that you're a storyteller. Mm-hmm. I think every artist should be.
Yeah. And really,
honestly.
And really smart and strategic about it and very forward thinking. And, I also found it very fascinating, some of the choices that you made of artists to join you in the clips. Some of them were like very unexpected and like people I didn't even know of. And it was like, as I started to go into your world, you know, with Grace being 20, you know, I learned a lot about like using today's technology,
Right,
really to help propel the project. Would you like to talk about some of those collaborators that you invited?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we start with Dylan Mulvaney, who has just, I mean, since the project has absolutely like continued to just blossom and just take the world by storm. But, you know, I really, for like the track Like a Person, I wanted to capture that experience of sort of being in the community. And I think a lot of, you know, anyone who's in that community can relate to that feeling of like not belonging or going home and sort of feeling like you don't fit in with your own family. It's a really, it's a strange feeling, especially if you don't, you know, recognize it. And I really wanted to bring someone like Dylan in who I had met previously. And I know that, you know, she had felt very marginalized in her own life. And I knew that she could help, you know, really tell that story and, you know, would have the right base to sort of move that message forward. And then, you know, we go to someone like Lauren Gray, who was in a few videos, Beauty and the Beast being sort of the big one that we did together. And, you know, someone like Lauren has had a message for a long time and has a base of a lot of young girls who look up to her and sort of idolize her. And she's really, I think, done a great job at sort of smashing traditional beauty standards and sort of taking the curtain off a little bit and, you know, really letting people into her world. So that was another one that made perfect sense. If you were going to go after sort of beauty in the industry, someone like Lauren, who's really, you know, shown you both sides, was like my perfect partner. And that goes for all the different, you know, people in the videos, like the drag artist for Gaga. I mean, who better than a drag artist to showcase Gaga's best looks? You know, it's like what they do best. So I think, yeah, everyone who, you know, we collaborated with was very like handpicked for each specific role. So it was a lot of fun.
It was so impressive. And speaking of Gaga, you know, I was very happy to see that, you know, the Gaga song and visual caught the attention of Lady Gaga. And she actually posted twice about it,
which is incredible.
It was awesome. And I was telling Grace how you and I had gotten to direct the Monster Ball tour and how lovely she was. And then I realized that Grace had a connection to her as well. And I was like, you know, Gaga needs to know about this. I mean, if I were her, I want to know that, you know, I'm being celebrated in such a grand way. And it was just so nice. It was just the cherry on the top of that particular cake.
Right.
Because there were 12 others. But that first cake, for her to embrace it and to tweet and to post about it, I think twice that I know of, was just such a blessing.
She is so special. She really was inspiring to me. I'm sure she's an inspiration to you as well. She is one that thinks outside of the box. She made me think about art in a different way.
Right.
You know, just even in my choreography world, like, you know, I was able to like really shift because of
Tell Grace the piano story.
So I feel when you said storytelling, first of all, I just want to say you are an old soul. I don't know how I feel like you are so wise. And how old are you? Are you 20?
We were 20 filming Pillbox, but I just turned 21.
I just like feel so actually impressed with you right now.
I already know.
Yeah, you're such an old soul. I feel like you get it. The storytelling, all that. Gaga. So this is one of my favorite stories about Gaga. She did, I think in her live show, she did 3 ballads, all, you know, a medley of 3 ballads. And she sat at the piano with her back to the audience and sang 3 ballads. And I lost it. I bawled my eyes out. The emotion she created was, I mean, I couldn't talk. I almost can't talk right now trying to explain it. The amount of emotion that came out of her back was mind. And I was like, wow, like this is the real deal. Not everyone's the real deal. A lot of people can do the stuff, but when you are telling a story and you believe in your story and you are really sharing a message or even better, your story, whoa, that's when it resonates with the audience, don't you know?
For sure.
Yeah. And I feel like you are that person. I feel like you are that person.
Yeah, I mean, the first of all, the enormity of the project was so and remains so impressive, and all of the beautiful imagery that came, you know, hats off to the whole team. But, you know, let's take it back a bit, Grace. Now, how did you even find this passion for the arts and songwriting and storytelling? Like take it on back to the beginning of your career.
Yeah, I mean, well, I started playing piano I was probably about 5 years old, so super young. My mom used to play piano. I would hear her around the house, and I was like, I also would like to do that. So I used to sit on her lap and follow her hands, and that's sort of how I learned to play. And
Mhm.
shortly after that, I was writing my own music. Now I was very young, so there wasn't a whole lot of structure.
Mhm.
But as I got older, maybe like 9 or 10, I really started writing, like pop music, like in
Mhm.
that structure, in those melodies and things like that. Sort of simultaneously, I started theater and dance lessons, and so I really just sort of did a dive in head first into sort of the world of arts. And I think, like a lot of artists, I didn't really have a place where I felt like I belonged, so I found that place on a stage in a
Mhm.
studio.
Mhm.
That's really what I gravitated towards, and still do today. So I think, I worked on music for many years, and I was like, begging my mom and my dad, please let me post something, let me put something out. And they're like, you have to wait till you're 16. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay. So I turned 16, and, my parents let me put together a YouTube channel and an Instagram account and things like that. And I started posting original music and covers as well. And then probably about a year into that, I had sort of the surprise success of Take Me to Church.
Mhm.
Um, and that's about it. After that video sort of took off and went viral, I had so many just different doors open and opportunities happen. And
Mhm.
I feel so blessed looking back on just, all the covers that I did do and the ones that did so well, because it's given me a platform to share my own music and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for a very long time now. I'm only 21, but it feels like I've been, in music for like 15 years.
It
That's
feels like
blessing.
you have been.
Yes, that's
with,
awesome. I
with all the
remember.
projects.
Yeah, I remember Pink Cadillac was one of your covers as well. Yeah, so that's. I mean, I just think it's so great, and young people like you continue to really impress me because you not only are aware of your art, but you're aware of the business. And one of the things I found so exciting to hear in our initial conversation interview was that you're an independent artist. And that you, because of the way the music industry now is, decided to go against the grain and put out your own material and on your own terms and take your own time and not necessarily have to be beholding to a conventional record company contract. Why was that so important to you?
You know, it's nothing against any of the labels or any artists who are signed, because I think that it can be a really good thing. But for me personally, I feel, like I really want that creative control. I want to see the vision all the way through. It's almost like a director of like a film. I sort of see myself as like the director of like my career and where it goes. And so I really feel pretty strongly about sort of keeping that creative control and collaborating with incredible people. And I don't want anyone to have any confines. I think something that was magical on the set of Pillbox is, I think we all would sort of joke that like if there was a big label or something behind it, we would have never gotten anything done. Like we just took a bunch of creative people, put them in the same room, and let each one of them do what they were really good at. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's ultimately why the project sort of turned out so well and so beautiful. And it just all, seamlessly kind of flowed together.
That's
But
great.
yeah, I mean, I just think it really depends on the artist. But for me personally, I have really enjoyed being able to sort of, really have control over that narrative of my career.
That's
Yeah, I think
incredible.
control is the key word. You do lose that when you're
Yeah.
being funded by a record company. I mean, the
Mhm.
one who's paying for it has the control, right?
Right.
That's always the way.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I can see that you would want to see this is your vision. It is special. There's meaning. You want to make sure that it's perfect
Absolutely.
and comes across the way you want it to.
So getting to the current release, The Cloud, which I love. I mean, from rehearsal on, it's haunting. It's so special. The dancers instantly reacted to it when we were in the studio rehearsing for it. And it turned out to be a magical piece, and it really makes me happy. But talk a little bit about, how that sort of plays into where you are right now as an artist, and the choice to have it be the current single, because I know some things changed when because you were on the fly and putting things out to kind of go in context with where the world was. That's what I saw from some of the
Yeah.
pieces. But The Cloud is special because not only does it feature the great Mariska Hargitay, but it lets you get your acting chops on for quite a while before the song even starts. How was that for you?
For sure. I mean, well, I'll start with Mariska. I mean, she's just incredible and has been so instrumental in both Black Box and Pillbox and sort of giving me, sharing her voice and her platform and these, songs and videos with her own audience. That's been really, really magical. I think that The Cloud is a very important video and one that sticks out on Pillbox for me because it really speaks to the way our world has changed as it pertains to technology. So Pillbox's sort of big story arc is me being immersed in this world of fantasy. And I think in a way, we all now as, human beings are immersed in this world of fantasy with this little device, right, called phone. And it has taken the world by storm and life is not as it was before. I was lucky enough to grow up in a time where technology wasn't quite there yet. Some people hear my age and they're like, oh, so, you grew up with a lot of technology. Not quite. My parents were pretty apprehensive towards it. And so I got, I think a better experience than a lot of kids growing up and not having such immediate access. But I think that what we all miss and what The Cloud really speaks to is like our phones make us feel so lonely. We don't feel like we have all the friends in the world. We're like scrolling aimlessly. We're comparing ourselves to others. We're seeing horrible stories, like bad news, and it's not, it's just this endless cycle. And yet we're like so addicted to it. We can't put it down. And it's like, we store all of our memories in this place called The Cloud, which whatever that means, whatever that is, and
I still don't know.
But nobody knows. Right. And like,
think of it as like a big, like a big file cabinet, like in a big invisible file cabinet.
An invisible file cabinet, like up in the sky somewhere. And it's just like, we live our life there and not here on planet Earth with our friends and our family. And we just forget. And so, when I was sort of writing the song, thinking about, well, if I could take a pill and make loneliness go away, like what would I take away? Honestly, my phone. That's the thing that makes me feel so lonely. It makes me feel so connected to the whole world and yet so separated at the same time. It's a weird little social experiment that we are all conducting right now.
Ironic that, our phone keeps us connected, but yet so disconnected. That's so weird and crazy.
So I know that charity and your philanthropic efforts are a big part of who you are. We be remiss to not, pause to, sort of celebrate that and whatever you'd like for the audience to know or how they can get involved
and support.
Yeah. And be active. That would be great.
Yeah, well, I've got blackboxproject.org, and that's sort of our nonprofit sector we launched with Blackbox. I figured if I was going to write an album for teens sort of about all these traumatizing things that happen, I didn't just want to put that out and then be like, listen, we've got nowhere for you to go either. So, I sort of created blackboxproject.org based on what I wished I had when I was younger and like scouring the internet for answers on questions and things like that. So I partnered with an incredible therapist, Jazz Robbins, who really takes, the 12 topics from Black Box, which include like family trauma, depression, anxiety, the list goes on. And she dives in and she gives people, an explanation and an understanding of these topics from a real therapist perspective who helps people every single day. And so I think, blackboxproject.org is a great place to go if you want information on what it is that you're really suffering with. Because I know that I used to look for a lot of information and found a lot of dead ends when I was younger.
That is so great and so profound. And coming from a person as young as you, I think really, really awesome. I think that is awesome, right? That you're so selfless in that way. So, on a lighter topic, but just as important, I think, you want to talk about Bake Up?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Bake Up is sort of a new collaboration between Joe Baker and I, who was my makeup artist for Black Box and Pillbox. Joe is a just creative powerhouse, lives in her own world. I think that, she's just so talented. And I think when we put out Black Box, the makeup looks got a lot of attention. There were a couple Instagram photos of me that just went off to get, like so many likes and so many views because people were responding to the makeup looks. They were like, what is that? How do I get it? And so Joe and I really sat down and we're like, wow, we've got something here with, these sort of storytelling makeup looks. So we created Bake Up. And it's a company that's sort of driven to just sort of break all the stereotypes that we know about the beauty industry. I think for a while, so-called like glam became so popular, and Joe and I sort of look at makeup as just a pure art form. I always tell the story of when I met Joe for the first time. She opened her kit and it looks like what a painter would have, not a makeup artist. Like it was just an explosion of color. And, she really plays with makeup with no rules. And I love that. And so Bake Up is just, we're putting out products and, ideas and lookbooks that we think people will have a ton of fun with. It's not necessarily about being glamorous. It's more about just playing with the art, having fun, and expressing yourself without any
Amen.
rules.
Oh, I love it.
Amen.
That's so fun. Such a new way to think about makeup.
And it's intention. I love art with intention.
Now, is it available now, or is it you're just working on it?
It is. It is. We just launched our micro palm palettes. We also just had our play box come out, which is like gemstones and a kit there. And then also the micellar water for Bake Up just came out, and the Daily Meltdown, which is like for someone like me who finds themselves when I do these big projects in like theatrical makeup, the Daily Meltdown's like a game changer. It's sort of like this balm that you put on and it just melts away a full face of makeup. I mean, instantaneously. Like for anyone who's maybe doing like drag or theater, I mean, it's going to be a game changer because it's hard to get that makeup off when you've got a lot on.
I mean, that is the truth. And now the next thing I want you to create is something for hair, because recently I've done so many jobs where they do your hair up in a beehive or whatever. I literally had to lay in the bathtub for 30 minutes and soak it and get it out. Like, so I know what you're saying. To melt off that makeup is one thing. Now I need to melt off the rats in my hair. Okay.
Not rats in the hair gel. But I would, before we let you go, Grace, and given all that you've experienced so far in your very young life, what would adult Grace tell little Grace?
Oh gosh. Maybe something along the lines of like, life is a wild ride and you have to just keep reading, because there's been so many periods just looking back in like, childhood or teenage years where I was just so uncertain about life in general. And what you realize as you get older is it is just one big adventure, and you got to just buckle in, like strap up and go, because you have no idea, where it's going to take you and what's going to happen. So it's sort of just like, you got to enjoy the ride and be present for all of it. And don't, take any little moment for granted.
Amen.
And one of the best sort of pieces of advice that we ever got, I'll never forget it, from a producer we had a meeting with. He was like, no one knows what they're doing. And I thought, oh my God, that's great. Because we're all just faking it. We're all just figuring it out as we go. Right. So we're not alone. Like none of us know what we're doing. We're just figuring it out. Like here we are.
That's the beautiful thing about art, is that you can get there any number of ways. The path is not set. You, in fact, get to create it if you're so fortunate, like you, Grace. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. But I have to say, I have to shout out to your family. Your mom, Christina, is so wonderful and supportive. Your team, Beth Ann, Katie, Bentley, like all of you were so welcoming to me. We did our first rehearsals at Grace's house. So it was like, it just made it that much more special, because it was just so personal. Right. So that always sets us up for a great creative experience, when we can really understand not only the art, but the person. And that was a wonderful, wonderful treat for me at that time. So again, thank you.
And it was a wonderful treat for me to meet you today.
Yes.
I am very impressed. You are so well-spoken. You are so thoughtful. You are so full of thought.
She's full out.
You are full out.
For real.
So thank you. Thanks for joining us, and tell everybody where they can follow you on social media.
All my social medias are under my name, Grace Gaustad, Gaustad, and YouTube as well. Everything's there. So
and TikTok.
And Spotify and Apple, the whole everything's under my full name, Grace Gaustad. And I just really appreciate you guys having me today.
Thank you.
Continue to have a blast and keep creating.
Yes, and congratulations to you on all the success. And there are more music videos to come. So looking forward to that too. Yes, everybody. This is the great Grace Gaustad.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you. Bye now.
Love you.